We are on the record for hearings on the matters listed in the North Dakota Industrial Commission hearing docket for January 18th. I am David Garner, hearing examiner for these hearings. We are at the hearing room for the Department of Mineral Resources, Oil and Gas Division, and it is 9 a.m. On the docket, the following matters will be continued or dismissed. Case number 30446 continued. Case number 30447 continued. Case number 30448 continued. Case number 30569 continued. And case number 30655 continued. The administrative docket starts on page 3 with case number 30653 and goes through case number 30658. These cases will be heard in the next room with Michael Zisch. Audio recordings of the cases and the administrative docket will be placed on the Oil and Gas website by the end of the week. If you wish to appear in one of those matters on the administrative docket, please appear in the next room. If there is opposition to the matter, it will be brought back into this hearing room to be heard, and your statements and evidence will be taken. We're actually going to begin by jumping ahead in the docket to case number 30561. All interested parties, please come forward.
Did you want to read the caption, or?
I'm sorry.
No, no need to
Apologies.
apologize.
Case number 30561, application of EOG Resources, Inc. for an order amending the field rules for the partial Bakken Pool, Montreal County, North Dakota, to create and establish two overlapping 2560-acre spacing units comprised of sections 28, 33, and 34, Township 154 North, Range 90 West, in Section 3, Township 153 North, Range 90 West, and Sections 32 and 33, Township 154 North, Range 90 West, and Sections 3 and 4, Township 153 North, Range 90 West, authorizing the drilling, completing, and producing of a well on each proposed overlapping 2560-acre spacing unit, and such other relief as appropriate. Now, please, all interested parties, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, North Dakota. Appearing in this matter on behalf of EOG Resources, Inc. Let me begin by thanking you, Mr. Examiner, for agreeing to take this case out of order and to accommodate EOG's schedule. We plan on calling two witnesses in this matter. Ms. Anna Morgan will be offering some land testimony, and Mr. John Schmidt will be offering some geologic and engineering testimony. Both witnesses will be appearing by telephone.
Ms. Morgan,
Good morning.
do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Anna, by whom are you employed,
EOG Resources,
and in what capacity?
Land Advisor.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
Yes, I have.
And have you had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes.
Offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
Motion granted.
Anna, let's go to what's been previously marked as Exhibit L1. Can you tell me what L1 is?
Exhibit L1 is a regional location map which shows the boundary of the partial Bakken Pool within the state of North Dakota.
And then let's go to L2, please.
L2 is an area location map. Again, the partial Bakken Pool is outlined in green, and the two requested 2,560-acre spacing units are outlined in blue and red.
And then L3, please.
L3 shows, again, the two requested spacing units. Within the blue 2,560-acre unit, EOG's working interest is 73.25%, and within the red outline is 58%.
And then let's move to Exhibit L4. Please tell us what that is.
L4 shows all of the development in the area. It shows EOG's leasehold. Again, the two spacing units that we're requesting, and then all of the underlying 640, 1,280, and 1,920-acre existing spacing units.
And then L5.
On Exhibit L5, we identified two underlying spacing units that we believe can be vacated on approval of this application.
No further questions of the land witness, Mr. Examiner.
Any questions from the staff? Mr. Schmidt,
Yes, sir.
you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief.
Yes, sir.
John, by whom are you employed?
EOG Resources,
In what capacity?
as a senior geological engineer.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
Yes, I have.
And you've had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes, sir.
Offer the testimony of this witness as that of an expert.
Motion granted.
John, let's turn to the next exhibit in the packet. It's been previously marked as G1. Can you identify G1 and then briefly discuss what's contained upon it?
Sure. G1 shows the Middle Bakken Reservoir structure map with the dip to the south, west-southwest, with the two spacing units identified, and the Middle Bakken is present at approximately 7250 subsea in this area, and then Wayzata 46-11M well is identified on that exhibit as well, and it will be used on G2 as the type log for that well, or for the area.
Okay, let's go to G2, please, and once again, identify and briefly discuss what's contained upon it.
G2 is that type log of the Wayzata 46-11M, showing that the Middle Bakken, Upper Bakken Shale, Middle Bakken, Lower Bakken, and Three Forks are all present in and under the proposed spacing unit.
Okay, then let's go on to the next exhibit, John. It's been previously marked as E1. Tell us what E1 is.
So that just shows what we're planning to drill with these two proposed 25/6 spacing units. We're planning to drill one Bakken well in each one to start out with, and that's what we're asking for today.
All
The
right,
first spacing.
and then E2.
E2 shows where we would plan to the wellbore path that we plan to use. Essentially, from Anna's final exhibit, E5 or L5, we essentially added section 3 to both of those units being vacated, and this allowed us to drill both wells from a common pad, thereby limiting surface impact, and it also allowed us to get approximately 1,500 to 1,800 more feet of lateral in by adding section 3 in, so that thereby increasing our lateral length for two wells from a common pad.
And just for the record, John, the spacing, or excuse me, the well that you're proposing for the 12560, which is outlined in green, is depicted on this exhibit as a green dash line. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And
Yes, and then for the yellow, for the other 2560, it's depicted as a yellow dashed line, and the unit is a yellow box.
okay, thank you.
So
Let's go on to E3, John.
E3 just shows kind of the relative position and spacing of those wells, how those wells are spaced out. For these two wells, we're expecting about 1,600 to 2,000 foot well inter-well distance between the new wells and the existing wells. That would give us room to infill in the future if we deemed it necessary.
And E4.
E4 shows those two wells that we're proposing in the two different spacing units, and then kind of the development around it and what we would propose for future development around it. As you can see, most of the eastern flank of these two spacing units are already pretty densely filled in, as same with the north and to the south. So there's an opportunity further east and a little bit to the southwest of these two units to drill additional wells, and we plan on one of those, the eastern one, over there in section 13 is already approved, and we will have cases for the new one. So that just gives the big picture of kind of how these wells fall into our overall infill development.
And this is an exhibit that the commission specifically requested in a previous case and asked that it be presented by EOG in future cases along the lines that being requested in this matter. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's go on then to E5, please. Just very quickly identify and tell us what that exhibit is.
E5 is just a wellbore diagram showing that we're planning to do a cemented liner with between 58 and 65 plug and perf stages for an 11,500 foot ladder.
And E6?
E6 showing the reservoir properties, gets down to the oil in place, and then those calculations, those numbers go into the next two exhibits showing. So moving on to E7, I've got two economic slides, one for each spacing unit because there's such a difference in the working interest and NRI for the green spacing unit is 74 and 59, so obviously that affects the net numbers down at the bottom. So on E7, EUR for oil for one Middle Bakken well is 846,000 barrels. Dry gas 301. Oil in place that we would drain with this one well would be 1.3%. Severance tax of 2.9 million. The investment, the well cost is about 10.2 million, and return on investment 2.11. And then you go down to E8, and again, EUR is about the same because they're both about 11,500 foot wells. But because of the different working interest in NRI, obviously our net at the bottom are a little bit different, showing our return on investment on this one of 1.61.
And then the final exhibit, GC1, is that a gas capture affidavit that the commission typically requires in these sorts of matters?
Yes.
And John, in your opinion, will the requested relief prevent waste, protect correlative rights, and prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
Yes, it will.
Mr. Examiner, no further questions. Offer the exhibits.
The exhibits are admitted. Any questions from the staff?
John, on Exhibit E2,
Yes.
is there a reason why that you're not considering any Three Forks wells, considering there's already some in the area there for infill?
Right now, they're not, the amount of water that we're getting from those is making them uneconomic, in our opinion. We tried some Three Forks wells there, and if we had the same results of those Three Forks wells, we would, based on our economic, they would be uneconomic. So at this point, we're not drilling any Three Forks wells. Obviously, in the future, if there was a change in a significant change in oil price that could get us there, we would consider it.
Looking at your pad location in Section 3, is there a reason why you just wouldn't utilize that? Why is that a pad that's already available and just expand it versus building another certain location?
There's actually a wetland just to the north of there, so we could get a full expansion of the pad, so we kind of went to the east of it. It also helps us, putting the pad where we put it, helps us get over that existing Wayzata 903 well with the green proposed wellbore. We'll be able to go over the top of it and land in the Middle Bakken without having to do a crossing of it.
Okay, thanks.
John, this is Lynn Helms. Looking at your exhibit E4, it stands out that the inner well distance or the well density here is quite different than the area around it. I think you kind of touched on it, but can you explain why?
Those wells were infilled under different economic hurdles that we had at the time. We're going on a kind of a cautious basis right now. We think that doing it as a step-by-step process will give us the opportunity to infill in the future. without drilling unnecessary wells and possibly stubbing our toes. So we're taking it one step at a time.
So can you drill additional wells from this pad that you're going to construct?
We would be able to, yes, we would be able to theoretically drill additional wells from this pad that has limiting surface impact if the results of these wells warrant, we believe warrant additional input.
Thank you. That concludes our hearing for case number 30561. We'll now move to case number 30648. Application of Continental Resources, Inc. for an order authorizing the use of an open receptacle to be located in northeast-northwest quarter of Section 8, Township 145 North, Range 96 West, Jim Creek Field, Dunn County, North Dakota, for storage of produced water to allow fracture stimulation of the Sloan 4-8H well, Sloan 5-8H well, Sloan 6-8H well, and Sloan 7-8H well, as an exception to the provisions of NDAC Section 430203-19.3 and such other and further relief. All interested parties, please come forward.
Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, North Dakota. Appearing in this matter, it was 30648, is that correct?
Yes.
On behalf of Continental Resources, Inc. Mr. Examiner, at this time, we'd respectfully request that cases 30648, 30649, and 30650, as well as 30651, be combined and consolidated for purposes of hearing. I'd also point out, Mr. Examiner, that case number 30651 was previous, well, there was another case before the commission where there were some issues, and the case had to be dismissed. So we would like the record incorporated from 30157 into case 30651. And we'll still present a little bit more information, but we would like that record incorporated into that case. I don't know, have I made myself clear, or does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll get my witnesses on the phone.
Okay, and your relief is
Okay.
granted.
Okay, do you plan on reading the other captions?
Yeah,
or-
I should.
Okay, and then I'll be getting those people on the phone while you're doing that.
So in addition to case number 30648, we will now call case number 30649, application of Continental Resources, Inc. for an order authorizing the use of an open receptacle to be located in southwest quarter of Section 5, Township 145 North, Range 96 West, Jim Creek Field, Dunn County, North Dakota, for storage of produced water to allow fracture stimulation of the Michaelicus 3 5H SL well and Michaelicus 4-5H SL1 well as an exception to the provisions of NDAC Section
Lawrence Bender.
430203-19.3 and such other relief, and such other and further relief. We will also call case
So you
number
guys, I'm going to tie you into the
30650,
call now, so
application of
maybe just
Continental
put your,
Resources for an
phone on
order
mute.
authorizing the use of an open receptacle to be
Okay.
located in the
putting you on
northeast
right now,
quarter
so-
of Section 19, Township 145 North, Range 96 West, Jim Creek Field, Dunn County, North Dakota, for storage of produced water to allow fracture stimulation of the Sloan 3-18 HSL well and Chase 6-19 HSL well as an exception to the provisions of NDAC Section 430203-19.3 and such other and further relief. And also case number 30651, application of Continental Resources, Inc. for an order authorizing the use of an open receptacle to be located in the northeast quarter of Section 7, Township 146 North, Range 96 West, Rattlesnake Point Field, Dunn County, North Dakota, for storage of produced water to allow fracture stimulation of the Cuskelly 6-7H well, Cuskelly 7-7H1 well, Thorvald 6-6H well, and Thorvald 7-6H1 well, as an exception to the provisions of NDAC Section 430203-19.3 code and such other and further relief. All interested parties, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, North Dakota. And I'm appearing in these consolidated matters on behalf of Continental Resources, Inc. We intend to call one witness in this matter, Mr. Todd Bernard, who will be appearing by telephone.
Mr. Bernard,
Yes,
do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Todd, by whom are you employed,
Continental Resources.
and in what capacity?
I'm the Completions Resource Coordinator for Williston Basin.
And in that capacity, you've testified before the commission on previous occasions, is that correct?
I have.
And in fact, you've testified on matters before the commission for similar relief having to do with open tank storage for completions, is that correct?
Yes.
We'd offer the further testimony of this witness, that of an expert.
Motion granted.
Todd, I'm going to direct your attention to the packet of exhibits that we put together for these four cases, and I've already requested that the commission incorporate into the record the testimony from a previous case. So with that in mind, what I'd like you to do is probably discuss in relatively extensive detail the matters having to do with case 30648, and then you can move on to summarize the matters after that, because I think there's a lot of similarities. Does that work for you?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, Todd, with that in mind, let's go to the packet of exhibits that have all been combined and consolidated, the first page of which says case number 30648, Sloan 4-7. You see that exhibit?
I do.
Okay. And then let's move on to the next page. I think mine says page 3. Is that what yours says?
It does.
Okay. Well, there will not be a page 2. We'll have a page 1, and we'll start with page 3. So briefly discuss what's on page 3.
Okay, from our previous presentations for the request of the exception to the rule, the committee put forth these sundry requirements, and so we built them out as a checklist for using open-top containers so that we can make sure that we're meeting all the requirements for the sundries and our sundry submissions. So this lays out the requirements and our selection criteria that we use for selecting which pads we can use these open-top storage containers on, and where we can place the pads. So going from the top to the bottom, we talked about the as-built cut and fill diagram and, designation of where we're going to place the tank to make sure that we're not placing it on fill, show our perimeter, our berm, our spill containment capacities, our approach on and off the pad, our jersey barriers, talks about our placement of our geotex liners and our sand pad to protect the bottom of the AST before we set it down, our real-time monitoring for leak detection between the dual liners, the layout of how we're going to introduce water into the tank so that we're not causing damage to the water liner on our initial fill, level monitoring, high and low, the jersey barrier placements so that, in the event that we had a catastrophic failure that would slow the breach of the water coming out, as well as protect the AST from any road traffic entering or moving among the pad. We'll have an emergency plan for emptying the receptacle and addressing any standbys in the event that we have a breach, including who we notify, immediate actions, isolations, and diagrams for our freshwater piping. Prior to filling, we'll do, or prior to introducing produced water into the system, we'll do a leak check using fresh water. We'll pressure test in the produced water lines on the flow lines. We're only using the risers on locations from our gathering system, so all those lines have been commissioned and approved prior to us coming in there to use the produced water risers on location.
Of course, once we go to set up, we notify the appropriate field commission inspectors so that they can evaluate the pad or monitor while we're setting up, so if any questions come up. On this particular one, we're looking to set the pad or set the tank on 410. It should be down by 4:30. The actual stem dates on there will probably be about 417 to 426, so that gives us a few days on either side to set it up, pre-fill, do our pressure test, get our crew moved in, and complete the stem. So these requirements meet the sundry requirements set forth from the commission from previous presentations, and with the rules change going into effect as soon as the Attorney General that we're projecting to be signed into approval in April, the majority of the four that we're presenting today all will occur after that. They're just done in case there is a delay in getting that signed. So each of these of the four that we're presenting, all meet the criteria previously set out by the commission for using the open top tanks.
Okay, let's go on then to page 4.
Okay, so page 4 is just the road approach and the topography. Same as page 5 is just a closer in version of the road approach and the topography around it. And please slow me down if I'm moving through these too quickly, because these are the previously approved plats that we've submitted for these wells. Moving on to what's page 6 on the packet, this is just construction layout and how we plan on doing the berms. Showing that the containment, will be sufficient to hold the volume of it, and that we can control any release onto the well pad should one occur. 7, 8, 9, and 10 are the cardinal directions from the pad, just pictures showing what the surrounding area is off the pad.
Okay, let's go to
And then
10.
okay, and on 10, which is the aerial photo showing the pad layout, and again, it's kind of an overview so we can see what the surrounding area looks like.
Todd, can I stop you for just a second?
Sure.
My pages aren't lining up like yours. Page 10 on my packet is not an aerial photo. It's just another photo of the pad site.
I'm sorry, I cruised to the northeast, southwest, the cardinal direction photos. That was 10. I'm sorry, that's the west-facing photo.
Okay, now let's go to page 11.
Okay. I did deduct it in one number since we didn't have that cover page on there. I didn't realize we had them all. So on 11, again, this is just showing our estimated tank rig up and rig down dates, and an aerial photo of what's in the surrounding area and the basic layout of the pad.
Okay.
Page 12 is where we plan on placing the AST and our Jersey barriers. It's just a little more detailed, showing how we plan to set the tank, where we're setting it, that we're not setting it on fill area only, and that it's out and away from and protected from traffic coming on and off of the pad. The Jersey barriers are just kind of spaced out there. There will be as many as necessary to ensure that we have an adequate barrier from any approach going to the pad from possible vehicle traffic.
Okay, and then 13, page 13.
Okay, they had previously asked me to provide the water aquifers location and relative to this pad site. So 13 just shows that location relative to the aquifers in the area.
Okay, now before you move on, the depiction of how you plan this operation in terms of layout for your various facilities to conduct this operation, are they similar or nearly identical to what you have done in the past when the commission has approved these open tanks?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now
That's the base criteria that we've used for our selection.
Okay. and that's based on what you previously discussed on Exhibit 3. You followed what the commission put out in their sundry
Right.
notice,
Yeah.
and
Yes, sir.
and now you're doing basically the same thing in terms of the operation.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's go on then to page, I think it's 14. Yeah, that was 13, 14. And since I believe this is going to be very similar to what you previously discussed, you can summarize or maybe just point out differences.
Okay. The only difference is that it's a different pad. The packet includes exactly the same material, starting with the sundry checklist and the dates, rig ups, and rig downs tentatively. We're scheduled, where the schedule sits right now, should be going down hole about 3:31. And this is the only pad in this group that is scheduled to stem prior to April 1. So, anyhow, it basically it's going to lay out. The photos are different, just in regards to the topography. Just it's a different location, different pad, but it contains the same material, cardinal directions, aerophoto relative to the layout, where we plan on placing the AST above ground storage tank, which is there on 25, and again, it's Jersey barrier protections around it. It's being placed on, it's not being placed over fill areas, because any pad that we have that we can't get it into a non-cut or a non-fill area, then we don't do that pad, or we don't select that pad or try to use produced water on it. And then, so everything's basically the same packet for all four of these, just the only difference is the pad.
Okay, I'm still going to have you just go through this quickly, but only with respect to, you kind of described what's all in this packet for this set of wells, and you end up again on page 26 with respect to aquifers in the area. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
That is correct, sir.
all right. Then let's move to 27, and why don't you briefly describe what's contained in the next part of this packet, as you just did, and you can even summarize further in terms of being identical to what you previously discussed.
Okay, so 27 is the Sloan 3 Chase 6 pad. Again, the next page on that, 28, is the sundry checklist that we used for the selection criteria, with a rig up, estimated rig up and rig down of the storage tank on 420, taken down on 510. And again, we'll meet all the same criteria, and we'll file the sundry with the pad layout, piping configuration, prior to, and get approval prior to the start of operations. The packet contains identical material as far as topography, location, cardinal direction photos off of the pad, and then all the way to 37, which is where we plan on placing the AST location on the pad and the protection that we'll be setting up around it.
And then you end up again with aquifer descriptions on page 38, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then the next page in the packet is page 39. This is a little bit different because we're requesting, I think this is the case, where we're requesting the incorporation of the record, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And can you briefly explain what the problem was with the previous application as to why this application needed to be put on the docket and why we're incorporating the record? Do you know?
It was a change in the well names and the configuration of the pad on the final as-built or planned build on the pad site.
Okay.
So there were some change in the well names, same number of wells, and the layout of the pad itself changed from our initial packet. So for clarity, we're resubmitting it to make sure that we're meeting all the requirements of the commission.
Okay, let's go to page 40 then, and as you did with the previous exhibits having to do with the sundry checklist, why don't you briefly discuss what's contained on this page?
Okay, so page 40 has the same criteria checklist as previously presented out by the commission in order to get approval prior to placing the AST. We have an estimated setup date on 4/20 with a takedown date of 5/20, about 30 days. The estimated downhole will be around the 29th of April, and we should be done by the 15th of May. But each of the checklist items are identical to the previously submitted packets.
Okay, so that would take us through page 40, well, I guess probably through page 49, and then once again,
Yep.
page 50 is the aquifers exhibit, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now we have some new exhibits, or I shouldn't say new exhibits, some additional pages, things we have not seen before, at least in this hearing. Can you briefly describe what's on page 51?
Okay, so previously when we submitted the packets, I had this entire packet into each of the exhibits. And basically what this is just kind of a picture of the above ground storage tanks, what it looks like, just so we can have a visual of the type of tanks we're talking about placing. So, and then on 53, there were a couple of photos there. It looks like they were duplicated, 51 and 52. 53 is the site preparation. We identify the site, we level the surface. It says leveled and filled. Don't want that filled term to be misconstrued. These are cut areas, and by filled I mean just make sure that, you know, when we lay down the gravel that we're putting the sand surface over the top and we're leveling it out prior to placing the Geotex liner. So the Geotex liner just protects it from any sharp edges or rocks laid over the sand that goes over the baseline. The liner is a 30 mil PVC. We're using 2 of those. We place leak detection between the 2 liners so that we have real-time monitoring that should a leak develop, that we immediately know about it and we can take our emergency actions. We'll set the suction lines and the candy canes, you know, how we're going to fill, so that we're not damaging the liner on the initial fill. This was a previous ask, and later on in this packet I have a picture of how we're doing it, so that we're not, you know, filling it when it's empty direct down, possibly damaging the liners. So moving on to 54, real-time monitoring of the tank during operations and installations. So once we get it set, we'll test all the sensors. The sensors will provide us immediate and early detection of any liner leaks so that we can address them before it becomes an issue. It's 24/7 on-site monitoring. It's integrated into our SCADA system so that should we have an alarm, it's notified locally and here in Oklahoma City at our corporate offices. Notifications go out so that everybody is aware that, you know, we have an alarming situation and it can be addressed. On 55 is our spill response and recovery. And this just lines out just so that everybody's on the same page of what we're going to do should we have an issue. You know, make sure that we've got our superintendent environmental notified. Our environmental department will take care of further notifications outside and let the superintendents handle what's on the location. We'll secure it. We can pump down the tank either back to the system or down the hole of a well to reduce the water should we have a leak that's requiring us to empty the tank so that we can rapidly take it down. We will have vacuum trucks on standby out there to address any leaks so that we don't have to wait for one to come out there. If we have a leak, we'll contain it, dams, dikes, berms, to keep the release from going off location. We'll get us cleaned up using best practices, and we'll take the tank down and resolve the issue before moving forward.
Okay, 56.
Okay, previously they had asked me to provide kind of what the breakdown of our Dunn County water TDS is. and kind of what it's made up of. So this is kind of a general, we come through our gathering system, so this is an aggregate average sampled off over 6 months. It's basically about 310,000 TDS, and just shows the chlorides, calcium. It's just kind of a breakdown of the chemicals. And in particular, looking at the pH and the other possible things that might break down the liner. This is listed out, and then a little bit further down the package, we show the liner is certified to meet and to uphold and withstand all of these chemical within these parameters. And we have the chemical resistance chart, which we'll get to at the end, but that's why this one's in there.
Okay, page 57.
Previously,
I'm sorry.
at page 7, I was asked to provide the tank certification, the engineering certifications for the tanks. It had been asked if they had an updated certification, and I've gone back to the providers on it. The design and the fabrication of these have not been modified, so they have not seen the need to do a re-engineering compliance certification since they have been certified. So page 58
Can
is
you just
the layout
stop,
of how.
Todd, just a moment
Yes.
before you move
All
on to
right.
58. Both when you discussed 56, page 56 and 57, you've made the remark, they have asked you, I assume you're referring to the commission, and I assume you're talking about in previous cases, the commission
That
has
is correct.
requested this sort of information. Okay, thank you. Let's go on to page 58 then.
Okay. 58 is what I referenced earlier of how we do the fill on the tank, so that we're not going directly down onto the liner when we do our initial fill. This is a flex. It's got 12 inches off the bottom of the tank, so that we're introducing the water at a horizontal, not a vertical down, to reduce impact onto the liner when we do our initial fills and throughout the operation.
Okay, page 59.
This is the structural certifications for the different size above-ground storage tanks that we're using, as previously submitted.
Okay, and
That both those were.
that's 59. Starting to miss some page numbers here. So with the next page, we'll make that page 60. And
You're right.
is that part of 59?
Page 60 is, yeah, it's the second page of 59.
Okay.
And then the last one is the chemical resistance chart that I was asked to provide for the liners. I know that's kind of small there, but it shows the resistance to the different chemicals that we might expect in there, and everything within is well within spec considering our produced water. And this was previously submitted on prior hearings as well.
Mr. Examiner, I don't believe I have any more questions. We would offer Exhibit 1 and specifically each one of the pages that the witness discussed in Exhibit 1.
The exhibit is admitted. Any questions from the staff?
Hey Todd, on page 51, those pictures that you used on 51 and 52, those are just example photos that you've grabbed off the internet of that you've used in previous cases. Those are not setups in North Dakota, are they?
That is correct. Those are not in North Dakota.
Now that we're starting to get a few of these in the future, I think it'd be helpful if you were able to grab pictures of the actual setups of ones that you're doing in North Dakota, so that way we can kind of see that for reference.
Yes, sir. I
you.
can do that.
Todd, this is David Tabor. I got several different questions. First off, how many of these facilities has Continental actually used to date in North Dakota?
We have done 4 separate locations.
In the process of tear down and moving them to the next location, has Continental noted any tears or any issues that they needed to repair or remedy before they put the next, or before they started operations of after it was reassembled?
No. So just let me clarify there. The outer metal walls are basically the only thing that will go to the next site. Everything else is disposed of. The liners, we single use them just so that there's no question that, there's no breakdown. So these are single-use liners, so they are not used from one pad to the next. Only the outer ring and the metal portions go to the next pad.
Okay, you answered quite a few of my other questions I had then.
Okay.
Supplier, are you using the same supplier for the tanks, or have you been switching back and forth between the two that you noted in your slides?
The only one that the certification that the commission approved were the well water tanks, and those are the only ones we've been using.
Okay. On your chem chart, which I think we marked page 61, hopefully I'm right.
You are?
It says that it's resistant, and I'm kind of looking for your guidance here, but it says it's resistant at, I think it's 68 degrees Fahrenheit to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Am I understanding that correctly?
That is correct.
What temperature normally is the fluid in the tanks before it's pumped over for frac?
When it's coming in, that's our normal operating range. We will occasionally drop below that 68 degrees, but we try to keep it temperature up. The produced water is coming in around 100, 104, 105 degrees Fahrenheit. We are mixing this with our fresh water at about a 20% ratio, 20 to 25%. Is our target. We haven't quite been hitting that target on the high side yet. We've been averaging about 17.5 to 18, but we hope to get that up to 25%. So it's 75% most of the time, or 80% fresh water. But we do heat that water prior to go down hole, so we have heaters set up on location so that we maintain the temperature so that we're not thermally shocking our well bores.
Okay. And then the code, the main one I guess I'm wondering about is S. What does S stand for in this chart?
The code F, the Fahrenheit?
No, S, Sierra.
F. Oh, Sierra. Let me bring it in here. I guess I'm not seeing where you're referencing Sierra.
On the same chart, if you go down to say calcium chloride or chlorate, calcium nitrate, sulfate, if you scroll over to the right where it says resistance at, and it gives you that 20 degrees Celsius or 68 degrees Fahrenheit, if you drop down into the actual chart, there's a bunch of different abbreviations. There's S, L, U, and the main one I'm wondering is S.
Okay. I'm going to have to get back to you on that. I don't want to answer it without having the exact answer. So let me get that answer, and I will provide that back to the commission.
Okay. I believe that's all I have for now, so thank you.
Thank you.
Todd, with respect to David's last question, maybe just have page 61 resubmitted with the, I guess,
With the index on it.
yeah, with the index for those values.
Yep.
And
I'll
then
do that.
page 37 looks like a copy of page 12 from the other case application instead of the planned build for the Sloan Chase site.
This is the Sloan 4 through 8 build, and your question is
So-
it the same one?
Yeah, page 37 and page 12 are identical in my packet.
Okay.
At least the pad layout within that page is.
You are correct. And it's labeled as the Sloan. I will get the, I'm not sure. It's the Sloan.
It would appear that page 12 is correct.
Yeah,
37 just
yeah,
needs to be
they're
revised.
labeled correct. I think it has, okay, I will provide that back to the commission as well, the as built, and it will also go with the sundry. when we get it. It's labeled correctly, but it's in the wrong packet. So I will get you the as-built for the 4.7 and with the tank placement.
And then I think you'd also need the planned build,
Yeah.
yeah, for the Sloan 3, Chase 6, because that's what's missing from the packet.
Yeah. I apologize for that. I will correct that deficiency and resubmit.
Okay, thank you.
Todd, when you, these pipeline risers you have on location, then how does the water get to the tanks?
The risers come out of location, and then we'll polyline those into the inlets to the AST, above ground storage tanks.
And what freeboard do you allow on these tanks?
We don't go above 80% capacity on the tank, so that we're not worried about wind blowover. So we give, a couple feet, usually between 2 to 4 feet at the top. It's 80% capacity is our max load, is what the guidance is.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Todd, please remind me how the produced water is transported to these sites? You have a underground gathering system, or?
Yes, it's our gathering system. From our basin areas, the gathering system, it's all central. It goes to our disposals. So we have risers that we built off that system onto these pads that connect to the rest of our gathering system.
So no new pipelines being laid or anything like that?
No, sir. And when we're done, these are used for the production lines going back into the system once we produce the wells.
Thank you.
Lawrence, how long do you think you'll need?
Todd, do you think you can have the additional materials that the commission has requested done by, say, Wednesday of next week? I believe that's January 24th.
I will try to have them today, but yes.
Okay, so let's leave the record open until the 24th.
Okay, the record will remain open to the 24th to provide the staff requests. Okay, that concludes our hearings for case number 30648, 30649, 30650, 30651. We will now jump ahead to the supplement. Or if you want to call these cases together?
Yes.
And call case numbers 30659 and 30660. 30659, application of Continental Resources, Inc. for an order permitting the use of casing laid on the ground for the purpose of pumping hydraulic fracturing fluid between two specific well pads located in Section 5 and in Section 8, Township 145 North, Range 96 West, Gem Creek Field, Dunn County, North Dakota, and allowing casing to be installed from the pad of the following wells: Sloan 4-8H well, Sloan 5-8H well, Sloan 6-8H well, and Sloan 7-8H well, located in the northeast-northwest quarter of Section 8, Township 145 North, Range 96 West, connected to the pad of the following wells: Mikalukas 3-58H SL well, and Mikalukas 4-5H SL well, located in the southwest quarter of Section 5, Township 145 North, Range 96 West, and such further relief as appropriate. I'm also calling case number 30660, application of Continental Resources, Inc. for an order permitting the use of casing laid on the ground for the purpose of pumping hydraulic fracturing fluid between two specific well pads located in the Section 7, Township 146 North, Range 90 West, Rattlesnake Point Field, Dunn County, North Dakota, and allowing casing to be installed from the pad of the following wells: Cuskelley 6-7H well, Cuskelley 7-7H1 well, Cuskelley 8-7H SL well, Thorvald 6-6H well, Thorvald 7-6H1 well, and Thorvald 8-6H SL well, located in the northwest-northeast quarter of Section 7, Township 146 North, Range 96 West, connected to the pad of the following wells: Cuskelley 5-7H well and Thorvald 5-6H well, located in the northwest quarter of Section 7, Township 146 North, Range 90 West, and such further relief is appropriate. All interested parties, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, appearing in these consolidated matters on behalf of Continental Resources, Inc. Continental intends on calling one witness. Jeff, when you state your full name for the record?
Jeffrey David Levitt,
And can you spell your last name?
Leavitt.
Witness is ready to be sworn.
Mr. Levitt,
Yes, sir.
do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Jeff, by whom are you employed?
Continental Resources.
And in what capacity?
I'm the Williston Basin Field Completions Manager.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously and had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
I've never testified to the commission.
What I'd like you to do then, Jeff, is briefly highlight for the commission staff your educational background and work experience.
I served in the United States Army National Guard as a combat engineer, college for a degree in outdoor leadership, 4 years with Halliburton Energy Services in the Bakken, and 12 years with Continental Resources in the Bakken for a total of 15 years of oil and gas experience.
And Jeff, in preparation for today's hearing, have you made a thorough study and review of the various operations that are necessary to proceed with this remote stimulation process that you're going to discuss for us today?
I have.
And have you prepared or had prepared under your control and supervision some exhibits you intend to sponsor?
I do.
Offer the further testimony of this witness out of an expert.
Motion granted.
Jeff, I've distributed to the commission staff a packet of exhibits, or exhibit, I should say. It's labeled Exhibit 1, and then there's page numbers on that particular exhibit. Page 1 is just a cover page. Let's go to page 2, and what I'd like you to do with respect to page 2 is identify what page 2, tell us what it is, and then briefly describe what's contained on that exhibit and why it's important to the application.
Okay, on page 2, what you see is an aerial view of our proposed layout to lay surface casing from the remote, from the main pad where the stim suite will be located is on the Sloan 4 through 7. Can be seen in the south corner of the picture. We propose to lay casing from that Sloan pad towards the northwest, and then back to the west to the Mike Lucas 3, Mike Lucas 4 pad, with the intention of remote stimulating those wells. The black line represents the 5.5-inch casing and the route we would lay it. And the total distance is approximately 1,600 feet from the Sloan to the Michael Lucas pad.
Okay, and there's a black line that goes straight west from the Sloan pad site. That's just a shadow in the aerial photo. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, I mean, the casing is going to be laid as you have it depicted, where you say 5.5-inch casing. Is that correct?
That's correct. There, and those are in the I guess the areas that we have a surface use agreement. We laid up through there. You can see them, and the disturbances.
Okay, and there's a relatively sharp turn, almost a 90-degree turn. You're going to explain in a subsequent exhibit how you're going to handle that turn. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, let's go on to the next exhibit then, or I shouldn't say next exhibit, excuse me, the next page of Exhibit 1, page 3. Tell us what that is.
Okay, again, we have an aerial photo of the proposed route for the Thorvald Kelly pad. The stim fleet would be located on the west side on the 6 through the Thorvald 8 pad. We propose laying that same 5.5-inch casing 1,100 feet towards the Kelly 5 and the Thorvald 5 with the purpose of remote stimulating those two wells.
Okay, and then let's go to page 4. Tell us what page 4 is.
Page 4 is to give the commission some insight into the casing specs and the process of laying that line and testing it. So I'll begin with, it'll be a 5.5-inch, 23-pound P110 Tenere 63 wedge connection. That will allow a safety factor of 1.74, and the internal burst pressure of that casing is rated at 16,500 pounds. The connection will be made up on site on the main pad where the simulation crew is located. We bring in basically a torquing unit, and it will be torqued up spec. Each torque is recorded and graphed and documented. Each connection is also inspected, torqued up by a Tenaris thread representative. Any connections that appear to be marked up or defective are put to the side, as well as any connections that are improperly torqued up are rejected. Once that first connection is made, we cap it, and an excavator pulls out a joint, and the process repeats over and over again until we've dragged the line to the pad that will be remote stimulated. Again, all the rig up and rig down of the casing is done with the mobile bucking unit on the pad itself. Nothing's done out in the field or out in the line. Once that's completed, we notify the state 24 hours before we intend to pressure test the line. We fill the line with fresh water and block the line, check for any leaks prior to applying any pressure. Then we'll begin the process of testing that. We'll work our way up to max pressure of 9,500 pounds, at which point we will shut down, and we chart and record the pressure for 30 minutes and look for less than a 4% leak off, similar to how we test 7-inch pacing. Once that 30 minutes is passed without any indication of a loss in pressure, visual inspection is performed, and upon a successful test, we will slow down the line and pick the line, and it's ready for stimulation. During the actual stimulation, the line is routinely inspected, it's walked. We also use video surveillance and thermal imaging cameras to detect leaks while the job is being performed. Post-job, we purge the line with air compressors, blow it down, and then we run a pig through it to ensure there's no residual moisture. Then it's tapped, and the process is reversed. The excavator goes back to the stem site, and each piece of casing is dragged backwards and unbucked, wrapped for transport.
So Jeff, can you,
That's all I have.
yeah, can you just spend a little bit more time explaining to the commission staff, when you say the line will be routinely inspected, can you tell us about what routinely means? How often is that? Do you have a specific time or situation when you will inspect?
Approximately 1.5 hours to 3 hours, depending on the length of the treatment and the stage. It can vary due to wellbore conditions. We can't have anyone near that area while it's under pressure, so upon completion of a stage, we have individuals walk the line. And again, the thermal imaging cameras for real time while the line is under pressure, along with a regular video color video feed.
So at least every time you complete a stage, you're going to have somebody walking the line inspecting it for leaks. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, let's go on to the next page of the exhibit. That's been previously marked as Exhibit 5. Can you tell us what Exhibit 5 is?
Page 5 is the technical specifications of the 463 casing. Highlights on that are the internal yield pressure. It's rated 16,500 pounds. The yield strength is 829,000 pounds. And the capacity of the Thorvald Kelly line would be 23 barrels. And the capacity of the Michael Lucas line would be 34.7 barrels.
Okay, then let's go to page 6. As you've done with the previous exhibits, identify Exhibit 6 and then briefly discuss what's contained upon it.
Okay, in slide 6, you can see a remote casing job we performed in mid-December in Williams County. And you can see the casing laid on the ground, marked out with cones. And in the distance to the north in the photo, you can see the remote stimulation site. Safety considerations when performing this type of operation, again, like I previously stated, we have cameras in place to detect leaks. Again, those being thermal imaging and color cameras. We install a check valve on the remote pad, so in the event there is a breach in the remote casing or fluids or iron, traditional stim iron on location, there's a check valve to ensure that no fluid flow from the well back out through the iron or remote casing. As state law, all the hydraulic pumps on location have pressure relief valves, and Continental Resources runs dual pressure relief valves to ensure there's no overpressuring of the line. When needed, we run restraints from the casing in the photo to a monoflex connection. That'll be a later page there. And we use a third-party provider, has a digital lockout tagout system for all remote valve operations on both pads. We also run a fiber optic cable so that on-site supervision has real-time awareness of both pads, where the stimulation is occurring and the remote stimulation pad. We put highly visible markers and signs at regular intervals along the length. If there's if there were fences for landowners, we'd install additional markings. Just depends on how much activity is in that area, and landowner request if they're requesting any type of other markings for any equipment that may be operating. At no time will this line intersect any water course, any body of water, or any environmentally sensitive areas. And in the previous photos there, you saw it went over one of our lease access roads. We have a drive over built for that, and then we use a gate guard as we don't allow anyone to drive over it while it's under pressure.
Now, Jeff, I think when you started the discussion of page 6, you indicated that this was a depiction of a previous operation of Continental Resources. My understanding, the difference between what took place on this operation and what's going to take place on your future operation, if the application is granted, is that this just had fresh water in it. Is that a fair statement?
That's correct.
Okay. And can you, perhaps you mentioned this, I don't recall, what will be the, I guess we're going to get to that in the next exhibit. I was going to ask you about what the composition of the water will be, but let's go to page 7 of Exhibit 1, and then you can talk about that.
For the Castelli Thorvald, in the photo there, you can see a layout, and that's where we proposed to put the AST tank that would store a mixed blend of produced water and fresh water. We estimate it would be a 75% freshwater blend and would average between 17 and 20%. Seems to be the average on our prior produced water jobs, and we believe the max ratio would be 25% produced water.
And once again, the previous operation that Continental conducted, that was just a trace of produced water. Is that correct?
That's correct. That we consider residual from any residual that would have been left in equipment.
Let's go to page 8 then of the exhibits and just briefly discuss what's contained on that page.
This operation allows for a reduced completion time on average per pad. You can expect a reduction of approximately 4 to 5 days. And one of the biggest benefits is the rigging up and the rigging down of the equipment and then traveling on the road. We reduce our freshwater usage, obviously by increasing our produced water usage. To reduce footprint for development, as you can see in those previous photos, some of the pads are smaller, and this allows the pads to remain small. Otherwise, we would have to go back and enlarge the pads to fit the required equipment on location. Reduces crew mobilization. Again, keep those trucks off the road, keep the dust down, the activity in front of landowners, houses, and property. There's a reduction of at-risk activity for rigging up and rigging down. By eliminating a complete rig up and rig down, we don't have those risks that you may have with swinging a hammer, trips, falls, loader incidents, things like that. Another big one is the reduced traffic. There are initial conversations with landowners on these remote stims have been very positive. We're able to reroute traffic in instance. Again, keep those pad sizes small and reduce our impact on the environment. And then another benefit is increased capital competitiveness with other basins. By using that produced water, we're using a water that's already heated. We don't have to heat that water, especially in the wintertime. Brings our overall cost down. We're also not having to purchase fresh water and cuts down our cost.
And Jeff, in response to some questions I had on page 2 of the exhibits having to do with the relatively sharp turn in the casing as it was depicted on that exhibit, can you explain what's contained on page 9 of Exhibit 1?
Sure. In the appendix there, that is a Cameron Industries Monoflex hose. That hose we use on every Continental job on our stimulation that runs off the wellhead to our manifold, and this will allow us to put a bend in the line, basically, if you will. It's not a 90-degree as it appears in the photo. It's more like, I would say, 50 degrees. But these hoses have been used on offshore drilling rigs for many years before this technology was brought on land. Continental has been using them in the Bakken for approximately 4 years on our stim jobs.
Okay. Mr. Examiner, that's all the questions I have for this witness. We would offer the exhibits.
The exhibits are admitted. Any questions from the staff?
Jeffrey, this is David Tabor. When's Continental proposing to do these operations if it was approved?
The storybook Skelly, we estimate would be April 29th, and the Michael Lucas Sloan Pad, March 31st. Again, those are tentative dates.
What do you anticipate the maximum pressure that will be seen by the casing during fracking operations or completion operations?
Max pressure would be now 9,500, and regularly would experience 8,900 to 9,200.
You spoke briefly on page 2. You showed that picture where the casing goes across the road. I just want to make sure I understood correctly. You will have a drive over there, so it's not going through a culvert or under the road. It will lay on top of the road with a crossover.
No, sir. We will trench that lease road, and we will lay that casing in there. Then we'll lay rig map over that, and then on top of the rig map, we will place dirt, and then on the sides of the rig map, along the road there, we will place Jersey barriers.
In that same picture, it appears to the right of that road crossing a pretty good dip or drop there. That drainage, I'm assuming, a natural drainage there, does that go to any large body of water or stock containment any place close?
Not that I'm aware of, sir. I don't know if that's more of a shadow for the from the area disturbances from the underground line. This fairly flat.
Okay. Is the landowner aware of what Continental is proposing to do?
Yes, sir. And we're currently working on an amendment to the surface use agreement.
So you will have some kind of affidavit or legal agreement with them?
Yes, sir.
You've indicated that Continental has used the casing method prior with freshwater mainly only. Any issues noted with the bending in the casing on the collars and the threading in those connection points? Some of these pictures, it appears to me anyhow, from just a picture, of course, that obviously the ground isn't going to be totally flat or level, and I'm assuming in some of those dips you probably would have a collar, or are you trying to ensure the way the casing's laid that a collar isn't crossing over something that would bend or put extra stress on those threads?
No, believe it or not, that that casing can actually bend. I'm going to tell you, we were quite surprised, but it can bend almost 180 degrees. But if you were to bend it significantly like that, obviously it would be derated. But for the bends we had in those photos, there's no concern.
Okay.
And that job you referred to, sir, we've broke that down and we've sent that in for inspection. And again, the Tenaris hand inspect those, and then wall thickness is gauged, and it's tested. And I guess I should note for the proposed Michael Lucas and Thorbo Kelly, we would be using brand for those jobs.
Can you say that again? You'll be using, what was it you cut out?
On the Thorbo, Kelly, and the Sloan, we will be using brand new casing.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And on the page 9, I believe it was, showing the Monoflex, which you indicated is made up of a rubber compound, it's stated there, and Continental has used those on pads. Any fractures or brittleization due to cold temperatures that need to be aware of or concerned with that?
No, sir. We've used them, January, February, with no issues.
Okay. And you indicated that the connections are made on a pad, and then a piece of heavy equipment then just simply drags the connection until you reach to the destination pad?
Yes, sir. We have a mobile bucking unit. It's a continuous torque unit. And if you can go back to slide 4 or page 4, in that photo in the top right, you can see the excavator pulling it. And in that photo, that excavator pulled 3,600 feet of casing. That's our actual job in North Dakota, that photo.
Have you done a similar operation in any other states?
But it's quite frequent in Colorado and Texas.
Are you aware of any issues of doing this operation in those states that came up?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Jeffrey, when the line is laid out, you state you're gonna notify the inspector 24 hours before testing it. Would that be the time that they would probably do a walkthrough at that time?
Prior to calling it?
No, when they come out to witness a pressure test, would that be the appropriate time for them to do a walkthrough to note any concerns?
Yes, sir.
Once the casing is used on a job, what's its future use after that?
It will continue to be deployed on these type of operations. The casing itself can withstand millions and millions of pounds of sand and erosion. The main issue are the threads and the dyes. So eventually, the slips and the dyes on the slip there will bite into it, and it'll become derated, or the threads will be damaged. So at that point, you can cut it off, you can repurpose it, have it rethreaded. You can use it to run liners. It has other purposes outside of stimulation.
On your page 5, the Tenaris wedge, the yield strength of 829,000 pounds. That's for the
Yes, sir.
That's for the wedge?
That's for the connection, yes, sir. It's a wedge style thread, and it's kind of unique. This is one of the most premium threads that you can purchase. It not only regularly run in the Bakken, does not seal like this connection. This is actually gas tight connection. So makes a flat seal there, and it's premium. It's overkill for what we're using it for, but considering how we're running it, we wanted to get the best that we could get with the highest safety margin.
So when you talked about your pressure test and you're looking for less than a 4% leak off, what's going to account for that 4% leak off? I mean, where's it going?
So when you first introduce the fresh water into the system, you have to boost that at low pressure and purge the air out. And if there's any, an air bubble or maybe a little high spot that had air hung up, that on a pressure test will give you an indication that you're leaking off, if you will.
So you're accounting for compression of air?
Partially, there would be some air in the system. And we took those guidelines from what we used to test our 7-inch casing that's run downhole prior to stimulating. So we use the same standard that we abide by for this.
Did you say it was a 30-minute pressure test?
Correct.
And will you require the pressure to stabilize?
Yes, it was a perfect scenario. We would come up to, work our way up, slowly to that 9,500, and then once we hit 9,500, we'd shut the pump off and monitor the pressure. And again, just we graph it, and we do less than 4%. Call it a pass.
Would you take into account if it was slowly declining and run the test longer to see if it stabilized?
Generally, if you get to 9,500 and after 2 or 3 minutes you've lost, say 15, 20 pounds, generally you either need to prime the line or bleed off the pressure, run some more fluid through it, prime it up to get that last bit of air, or you may have a leak that you have to look for. But the drop in pressure is generally very gradual.
The thermal imaging, will that be in place while you're pressure testing the line?
No, well, possibly, but no, it won't be a requirement, being that it's water. The equipment may be there depending on how close the stem is behind it, but generally we do this work 4 to say 6 days prior to the stem.
Your monoflex connection, how does that connect to the casing?
There's a flange connection, and then we have puck joints of the casing that have been torqued up to a flange. And we have, I think, 12 of them available, and that allows us just to space things out. Again, make turns, and when it comes back onto the stim site, it has to tie into the manifold that's on location that ties into the wellhead. And again, we use these Cameron hoses to do that on location and go from our stim manifold to the wellhead itself.
Do these flex connections, that they have a life? I mean, how often can you reuse those?
So Cameron, after every job, they rig these down, and then they have a camera that runs through the inside of it. And the coating on the inside, it's proprietary. I'm not exactly sure the internal coating of the hose, but it has layers built into it. And when that layer wears out, it turns red. Then you see a red layer, and the cameras run through and inspect it. There's a visual inspection on the flange. The rubber hose on the outside is more of a protective coating, if you will. The rubber hose on the outside doesn't have anything to do with the pressure rating of the hose. So if there was nicks on the hose, it doesn't derate it in any way. It's the internals of the hose. And we typically run 12 million pounds through one of these, and we've had others that have had entire jobs run through them, upwards of 80 to 100 million pounds of sand with no issue. We've never had an issue with a Cameron hose since we.
Do you think the commission should establish a maximum percentage leak off for the pressure test?
If you feel that's appropriate, absolutely.
And you would recommend 4%?
I do. Again, that's the same guidelines we use for 7-inch casing in well bores.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Jeffrey, this is Evan Rommel. For the Sloan Michael Lucas, you said that was approximately 1,600 feet. I didn't catch if you said that for the Thorville Coskelly. What's the approximate distance for the casing?
And the storyboard approximate 1,100 feet.
Okay, thank you. And you said the maximum operating pressure was 9,500, and you'll also be testing to that. Would you consider testing above that maximum? Or are you guys? Mm-hmm.
Well, depending on the component of the system, I may not be able to. Mostly everything is rated to 15,000, but going back to the, as I referred to the 7-inch casing test we do for the state, we're not allowed to simulate higher than that test. So we generally wouldn't go above that. And I mean, are you looking for a higher comfort level with a greater pressure? Is that your
Right, somewhat of a safety factor, testing to a little bit higher than what you're going to be operating at.
Yeah, I could. I'd have to ensure that nothing in the system is rated below 10,000, but we could. But do you have a number you're considering?
Not at the moment.
Yeah, I guess to answer your question, yes, it's technically possible, so we could do that.
Okay. And then as far as the video and thermal cameras, how many of those would you have set up, and where would the locations of those be?
Generally one on both pads facing each other. So you have one going both ways. If we had in the future, if we had a pad that it had a bigger hill or whatnot, we can place one in the center as well. We just have to provide a power source out there for it.
Okay.
But each we would plant one on each pad each other.
One on each pad facing each other, okay. And then as far as the remote valve operation, is any of that automated, or would that still be, someone having to hit the switch, if you will?
So the lockout of the system and the unlocking of the system is done by a computer, but a human has to actually use his hand to actuate the valve. So we use remote operated valves for safety on all of our manifolding and wellhead. Those are hoses run out to an accumulator, and on that accumulator is our digital lockout tagout system, and all that does is unlock or lock, but a human still has to physically move the lever to open and close the valve. And we require 3 people to be involved with that process, actually at the lever, and they all have a 4-digit PIN, and they all have to enter their personal identification number into the system, and then it will unlock or lock the valve, if you will.
Okay. As far as that being automated, would you guys have the capacity to do that, or what would that look like?
Oh, for a computer to actually
To have an automatic shutdown? Mm-hmm.
an automatic shut-in, or an automatic shutdown of pumps. So we have systems in place. So they're called global trips, and you have local trips. And computers shut down the pump automatically if a pressure threshold is met. And we have 3 stages of that. You'll have like your local, might be set to 92,500. And then you have another one set where anywhere in the system, 9,500 pounds would be detected. It would shut everything down. And then the pop-off valve also have sensors so that if that pressure is detected, it automatically releases the pop-off valve and dumps the pressure into a tank. So we have automated systems for that, but for automated systems to shut in a well, no, I do not have a computer that can shut in a well.
Okay, no, understood on the pumps though, and thanks for giving some of the, is that what your typical pressure alarms would be set at, what you discussed there?
Actually, they're staged, so make it simple, we're running 10 pumps. 2 pumps will be set at 9,400, 2 pumps will be at 9,300, 2 pumps will be at 9,200, like that, so that you just don't trip out instantaneously. You would start to lose a pump, i.e. pressure, before you got to the maximum of 9,500. You don't want to rely on the trip. You rely on a human to start bringing the pressure down as you're approaching the 9,500 mark.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Jeffrey.
You're welcome.
Jeffrey, I have a couple of follow-up questions. You had mentioned the fiber optic cable. Where's that cable installed and what's it used for?
Okay, so that digital system of locking out and opening, or locking and unlocking the actuators, the system is located on both pads, but so that both operations and on-site supervisors have visual awareness, and to prevent, say, a well being shut on a remote pad that shouldn't be shut while they're pumping from the main pad. That fiber optic cable allows the communication between the pads, and it's we have like a heads-up display, real time, all the valves, the positions, the activity that's going on, rates and pressures that both on-site supervisors on-site supervisors can see. And that fiber optic cable, it can be run, in this instance, it'll probably be run just along the casing for convenience. Other times it could be run, just out in the field. It would depend again on the landowner too, where we're allowed to operate. But generally, for convenience, it's just run along the casing.
The amended surface use agreements you mentioned, are those in place now, or are you still working on those?
We're working on those.
I assume it must look favorable.
Yes, sir.
So the line itself, the pressure relief that it will, for that line is basically your pumps, is that right?
No, well, so after you come off the pump, traditionally on a stem location, you come off the pump and that line that would go to the wellhead or the casing is where the pressure relief valves are.
Yeah, so it's on location. There's not one out in the middle of the field or anything like that.
Oh, no, sir. No, sir. And then, again, that's state law. That pressure relief device is hard iron from the discharge port of the pressure release valve, and that is ran into a tank location.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, that concludes our hearing for
Mr.
case.
Examiner, I don't have any further questions, but perhaps we could leave the record open on this until January 24th as well, so that we can discuss a little bit further these questions that were raised having to do with increasing the pressure test beyond 9,500 pounds. We'll look into that and probably just provide some sort of response as to why or why not. That's an issue for us.
Okay, the record shall remain open until January 24th. And with that, that concludes our hearing for case number 30659 and case number 30660. At this time, we're going to take a 10-minute break. We're off the record. It's 10:42. We are back on the record. It is 10:52. And we'll begin by calling case number 30652. Application of Slauson Exploration Company, Inc. for an order for the Big Bend Bakken Pool, Montreal County, North Dakota as follows. 1. Create and establish an overlapping 1,600-acre spacing unit comprised of the south half, and lots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 of Section 9, and all of Sections 16 and 21, Township 152 North, Range 91 West, authorizing the drilling of a total not to exceed 2 horizontal wells on said proposed overlapping 1,600-acre spacing unit. 2. Allow the number of wells for 2 existing 1,280-acre spacing units comprised of Sections 9 and 16 and Sections 21 and 28, Township 152 North, Range 91 West, to be no less than 4 wells per 1,280-acre spacing unit. And 3. Amend order number 32177 and any other orders of the Commission so as to terminate an existing 1920-acre spacing unit comprised of Sections 22, 27, and 34, Township 152 North, Range 91 West, in Zone 38, and such further relief. All interested parties, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, hearing this matter, case 30652 on behalf of Slauson Exploration Company, Inc. Slauson intends on calling 3 witnesses in the area of land. Slauson will call Mr. Chris Manning. In the area of geology, Slauson will be calling Mr. Dylan Dozel. And then finally, in the area of engineering, Slauson will be calling Mr. William Miller. And each of these witnesses will be appearing by telephone, and they are on the phone as we speak.
Mr. Manning,
Yes.
do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
Will, by whom are you employed?
Slauson Exploration Company,
In what capacity?
land manager.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
Yes.
Had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes.
Mr. Examiner, I'm offered subsequent testimony of this witness as that of an expert.
Motion granted.
Chris, let's skip the cover page, let's skip the table of contents, and let's go to what's been previously marked as Exhibit 1. And what I'd like you to do is identify Exhibit 1 and then briefly discuss what's contained on that exhibit.
Yes, Exhibit 1 is a location map depicting our fish finder spacing unit that's part of this application. It's a 1,600-acre unit, and it is highlighted in yellow on the map. And it's in Montreal County, North Dakota, just north of Lake Sakakawea.
And you're leaving out a half section in this proposed spacing unit to create the 1,600. The reason for that is going to become more evident when the engineering witness testifies. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, let's go to Exhibit 2.
Exhibit 2 is a working interest ownership schedule showing breakdown of the working interest owners for these lands. The only note that I would point out on there is that Section 9 is, since that was previously pooled, all of those owners are allocated into that south half of Section 9, included in this ownership. And it depicts that Slauson has the majority interest, our interest, combined with other partners of ours who are contractually obligated to support us as operator.
No further questions.
Any questions from the staff? Mr. Dozel,
Yes.
do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Dylan, by whom are you employed?
Slauson Exploration,
What capacity?
a geologist.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
Yes, I have.
Had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes.
Offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
Motion granted.
Dylan, Exhibit 3, tell us what that is and what's contained on it.
Exhibit 3 is the structure map contoured on the Bakken, centered on our proposed 1,600-acre spacing unit. Contour interval is 20 feet. Dip is to the west-southwest at approximately 1 degree. The type log that'll be on the next exhibit, the location of it is symbolized by a red star right next to this proposed unit.
Okay, let's go to Exhibit 4.
This is the type log for this part of Big Bend Field. It's a pilot hole from the Sauger Federal 4. Porosity log on the left, production log on the right. The wells that are going to be drilled on this unit, if granted, would be targeting the Middle Bakken Formation.
No further questions of the geologic witness.
Any questions from the staff? Mr. Miller,
Yes.
do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
Will, by whom are you employed?
Slauson Exploration.
In what capacity?
The reservoir engineer.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission?
Yes.
And have you had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes.
Offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
Motion granted.
Will, let's go to the next exhibit in the packet, Exhibit 5. Identify that exhibit and then briefly discuss what's contained upon it.
Exhibit 5 is a development map showing our planned development on solely the requested 1,600-acre spacing unit that's the first part of this case application, along with the existing Middle Bakken wells on the underlying units that are part of that. It does show that because one of the spacing units was developed originally with a diagonally drilled well, which has actually pulled out, I believe, more volume than any of the other wells depicted here, and in particular our desire to drill extended lateral wells but not traverse that existing wellbore, just due to the difficulty we've had in the third mile with some depleted cleanouts, is kind of the impetus behind our application for doing these as 2.5-mile laterals as part of this application on the 1,600-acre spacing unit requested.
Okay, and Exhibit 6?
Exhibit 6 is a little more extensive development diagram that shows some development on other parts of this case application. In particular to the southeast in sections 22, 27, and 34. Part 3 of the application was requesting to terminate the 1920-acre unit that was previously established there. That actually ties in with the case that was heard on the administrative docket in December. I believe it was case number 30589, which was requesting increased density on the underlying 640 and 1,280-acre units. Again, that impetus behind that application is due to the same thing I'd referenced in the prior slide, some of those difficulties with depleted cleanouts at the very end of 3-mile laterals. We just think it's both more prudent in this area to do it with the on the underlying 1,280 and 640-acre spacing unit, and will allow us to also keep the development on the existing development corridor and use either existing pads or directly adjacent to sort of pad expansion that will allow us to minimize additional pipelines. The other thing that's shown here, in addition to the wells on the 1,600-acre unit that's applied for in Part 1, are some of the wells on the underlying 1,280-acre spacing units in Sections 9 and 16 and Sections 21 and 28. Those are currently both authorized as 1,280-acre spacing units in the field, with a density greater than the 4 wells that are shown here. And our application here is asking that as part of the revised field rules, that at least 4 wells remain authorized on those 1280s to allow for the development density pattern depicted on the exhibit.
Okay, let's go to Exhibit 7.
Exhibit 7 is an example wellbore diagram for the expected 2.5-mile lateral, approximately, that would be used for the 1,600-acre spacing unit, the Middle Bakken wells planned there, showing a cemented liner, a total depth of about 22,800 feet, a TVD of around 9920 feet, and as I said, cemented liner. We're currently experimenting around with some different stage densities, so I don't know the exact stage count that would be used on that 2.5 mile lateral. Based on our most recent completion designs, it would probably be in the neighborhood of 40.
All right, and then Exhibit 8.
Exhibit 8 is a example well economics that were prepared for a potential 2.5 mile lateral Middle Bakken well in this area on the requested spacing unit, showing a expected ultimate recovery just over 1 million barrels of oil, an initial GOR, and ultimate gas recovery of around 800,000 MCF of gas at $65 per barrel of net oil prices. We'd expect about $66.6 million in net sales, about $6.5 million in taxes remitted to North Dakota. That's just direct severance taxes. With a well cost of $10.3 million, we would expect a 2.82 to 1 TV10 profit to investment metric there, which certainly meets Slawson's thresholds, which is one of the reasons we're applying for this to probably come drill these later this year.
And Exhibit 9, is that a gas capture affidavit that the commission typically requires in these sorts of applications?
It is.
Okay. And Will, in your opinion, will the requested relief prevent waste, protect relative rights, and prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
Yes.
Mr. Examiner, that's all the questions I have. Offer the exhibits.
The exhibits are admitted. Any questions from the staff?
Will, on Exhibit 6,
Yes.
what is the future for the Middle Bakken in 28 and 33?
So 28 and 33 already have pretty extensive Middle Bakken development. Because that was not part of the overlapping spacings being requested for 1600, it was not shown here, but I believe there are 4 wells on a spacing unit that's section 33 and the below section 4 that's just off the map that are Middle Bakken. Those are fairly recently drilled wells, and I believe there are 3 additional 1 mile Middle Bakkens already drilled on section 28 that there are additional wells surrounding these spacing units on all sides that were not depicted on this map.
Okay, then over to the east there, 22, 27, 34, is there a reason why you're not doing any of those 3 mile wells instead of a 2 mile and a 1 mile?
So as I referenced slightly in the initial commentary there, it has to do with those some of the difficulty we've encountered at the very toes of 3 mile wells that are being drilled into existing depleted production. We've had pretty good success and still very much favor extended laterals to the almost maximal extent when you're going into essentially almost untapped or almost untapped reservoirs. But in some cases, especially when it allows us to perform that development from an existing development corridor, we're actually finding that the cleanouts for those can make the extended laterals more problematic.
Thanks.
Lawrence, the land witness was Chris?
Yes.
I'd like to recall him and ask a question.
Yes.
So lots 1, 2, 3, and 4, if I'm understanding correctly, those are on the Fort Berthold Indian Reservation?
I believe that,
Yes.
And then lots 5, 6, 7, 8 in the south half are outside the reservation. I'm just curious as to why you chose to include the lay down 160, if you will, in this space unit rather than just have it start at the reservation boundary.
that was a technical issue. I'd refer that to Will Miller.
I believe I can address the question at issue here is there were two factors that played into that. It allowed us to drill the laterals on the 1,600 acres unit to the maximum extent possible of stopping at the half section line rather than at the reservation boundary, while still stopping short of traversing that diagonally drilled well existing on section 9. Additionally, it lined up with that boundary development to the west, in that I believe there is I apologize, possibly not to the west, to the east. I believe the Whiting section line well that was drilled on that unit also was spaced to come down to the half section line. I believe that is the case, just going on memory. So we wanted that development pattern to line up with the adjacent spacing as well, which is why we requested all of those lots that bring the boundary of the spacing unit up to the half section line rather than stopping at the reservation boundary.
So based on your testimony, I assume you're gonna drill these wells on the 1,600 from the south?
Yes.
Probably would have made my question a little more intelligent. Can you submit a revised Exhibit 6 with the proposed surface locations for these wells?
Yes, I believe we can do that.
Just the ones for the 1,600?
Well, I might as well. There are some reduced, well, I guess not reduced, but modification of spacing for some 1280s, so at least the wells that are in the application.
Okay,
Space units.
We can certainly submit a revised Exhibit 6. The surface locations for the westernmost wells on those underlying 1280s in Section 9 and 16 and 21 and 28, I believe we are more certain and have negotiated that surface use agreement. There is a surface location for the 5 easternmost wells depicted there, the Three Forks on the northernmost 1280 and 2 Three Forks on the southernmost, where we are, I believe, are still scoping where exactly that surface location would be set, so it may be a tentative location when we submit the supplemental application, but we can certainly do that.
Yeah, and tentative is fine, thank you.
Will, how much time do you think you need for that? Do you think you can have that done by next week, Wednesday, or is that too soon?
Certainly.
Okay. Requests to the record remain open until January 24th for the submittal of the additional exhibit that was requested by Mr. Bohr.
Request granted.
One more item, I guess. Will, just to clarify, the intent on item number 2 in the caption, for the two 1280s, where you're requesting, the caption reads no less than 4 wells. I'm assuming you want at least 4 wells allowed on the two 1280s, is that correct?
Correct. I believe they're currently spaced with 7 wells authorized, and if the commission chooses to reduce that allowed density, we would want at least 4 to be authorized.
And your intent for those 1280s would be to allow for the drilling of the Three Forks wells on Exhibit 6?
Three Forks wells on Exhibit 6, in addition to 1 Middle Bakken 1280 that's in the westernmost portion of sections 21 and 28 that is shown on Exhibit 6.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, that concludes our hearing for case number 30652. Case number 30446, application of Petroshale US Inc. for an order amending the field rules for an Mandaree Bakken Pool, Dunn County, North Dakota, so as to create and establish an overlapping 1280-acre spacing unit comprised of sections 10 and 11, Township 149 North, Range 93 West, authorizing the drilling of a horizontal well on or near the section line between existing spacing units of said proposed overlapping 1280-acre spacing unit and such other relief. This case has been continued to our March hearings. That concludes our hearing for case number 30446. Case number 30447, application of Petroshale US Inc. for an order amending the field rules for the Eagle Nest Bach and Pool, Dunn County, North Dakota, so as to create and establish an overlapping 640-acre spacing unit comprised of the west half of Section 4 and the east half of Section 5, Township 148 North, Range 94 West, authorizing the drilling of a horizontal well on or near the section line between existing space units of said proposed overlapping 640-acre space unit and such other relief. This case has been continued to our March hearings. That concludes our hearing for case number 30447. Case number 30448, application of Petroshell US Inc. for an order amending the field rules for the Croft Bach and Pool and/or Bear Den Bach and Pool, McKenzie County, North Dakota, so as to create and establish 3 overlapping 2560-acre space units comprised of sections 11, 12, 13, and 14, sections 13, 14, 23, and 24, Township 149 North, Range 96 West, and sections 24 and 25, Township 149 North, Range 96 West, and sections 19 and 30, Township 149 North, Range 95 West, authorizing the drilling of a horizontal well on or near the section line between existing space units of each proposed overlapping 2560-acre space unit and such other relief. This case has been continued to our March hearings. That concludes our hearing for case number 30448. Case number 30569. Application of the Huyon Family Limited Partnership for an order suspending production operations, shutting in the Flat Top Butte 31-3H well, and granting a change of operator for said well, located in the northwest-northeast of Section 3, Township 145 North, Range 101 West, Flat Top Butte, Bach and Pool, McKenzie County, North Dakota, from Coil Dakota Operating LLC to an operator to be determined and such further relief. This case has been continued to our February hearings. That concludes our hearing for case number 30569, and that concludes our hearings for the day. We are off the record at 11:15.